the Labour Party has found itself embroiled in its own betting controversy this morning, and they have suspended their candidate, Kevin Craig, who's now being investigated by the Gambling Commission because he bet on himself to lose in this election.
Yeah, now, joining us now is Shadow Secretary for Work and Pensions, Liz Kendall. We're going to talk about the betting scandal in a moment. I know today you're setting out your plans to end the 8 a.m. scramble for a GP appointment, aren't you?
We are. I mean, I'm sure your viewers, I certainly have faced it myself, on the phone at 8 o'clock, desperate to get an appointment and not being able to do that. So we want to end that by training more GPs for the future, which is what we need, but also reducing pressure on existing GPs, making sure we've got the mental health staff we need. I think that would take a lot of pressure off GPs, making sure that we can use the NHS app on our phones to book appointments more directly, having more specialist GPs, and also having that wider support that we need, the nurses, the physiotherapists, occupational therapists brought together in health centres. I think that would make a real difference for people, improving their health, getting them the help they need early on, and actually also reducing pressure on our hospitals.
I mean, I think we'd all agree that would make a difference. The real question is, can you actually deliver it? So just a couple of quick points. There's a junior doctor strike coming up. They want a 35% pay rise. Are you going to give it them? And there's a cap on the number of doctors that we train in medical schools of £7,500 a year. Are you going to lift that cap?
Well, firstly, on the strike, we've been pretty honest and straightforward and said it's not affordable to do that 35% pay increase. But on day one, if we get into government, Wes Streeting will call the junior doctors in. And right here, right now, we're saying to them, please call off those strikes. This government isn't going to resolve the strikes. There's no point in having them now. Call them off, and then Labour, if we get into government, will get those negotiations going straight away. And on medical school places that you absolutely rightly raise. I mean, I remember last year, I think it was Worcester Medical School, a new school set up precisely to deal with this problem of not enough doctors in the system, were told they couldn't have any funding to train students in this country, and then they had to rely on students from abroad. So we do want to see a doubling of those medical school places, but that will take time, obviously, to train doctors. I think there's an awful lot we can do right here, right now. I mean, I don't need to call up my doctor to book an appointment to have my HRT reviewed. I should be able to do that on my NHS app. I think pharmacists can do a lot more, repeat prescriptions for people with long-term conditions. We can and we will make a difference. And my message to people is, if you want change, you're going to have to vote for it, for a government that will put the NHS first.
Well, that's interesting you say that, because Kevin Craig, your own parliamentary candidate, so convinced he was going to lose that he bet against himself. Now, how widespread is this in the Labour Party, that your candidates are placing bets on their own fortunes, do you think?
Well, he's the only person that we were told about by the Gambling Commission. And look, I think people do want politicians who follow the rules, and they want leaders who act, which is why Keir Starmer took immediate action to suspend him. That's absolutely the right thing to do. You know, people don't want to see days and days and weeks, as we've seen under Rishi Sunak, not taking action to act. There are rules. We need to abide for them. We've seen too much under the Tories, one rule for them and one rule for everybody else.
Yeah,
and I'm very proud that Keir Starmer has acted on that.
particular candidate. But Robert
Peston... there isn't, because we've suspended him.
Yeah, no, I know, but, I mean, suspended him for doing something wrong, apparently. I mean, you don't suspend somebody...
That's what you do. Yeah. That's what you do if you're a leader.
OK, but my question is, how widespread is this? Robert Peston suggests that this might be something that's more common than just one candidate.
So my understanding is we were told about one person by the Gambling Commission, one person they were investigating, and Keir Starmer acted immediately.
Are you going to wait for the Gambling Commission to tell you about any others, or are you going to check with candidates?
My understanding is that that's the only person they raised. And I do think people...
No, sorry, that wasn't my question. My question was, are you going to just rely on the Gambling Commission to raise this with you, or are you now going to ask all of your candidates, have you placed an inappropriate bet?
Well, Keir's been pretty straight by his actions, that if anybody is found to have been breaching the rules, he will act, because I think there is a sense that...
Sorry, you're still avoiding the question. My question isn't, is he going to act if the Gambling Commission highlight a candidate? My question is, are you, as a party, going to ask all of the candidates if they've placed an inappropriate bet?
All I know is what we've been told by the Gambling Commission, and that Keir has acted on that. And that's really important, because we have seen too much. That's all I know at this stage. That's all I know at this stage.
If I can change subject, one of the main themes we're talking about today is council tax. The value of most people's bands in this country was done in 1991 by a stopgap drive-by valuation. We've seen massive changes in house prices since. There's 400,000 people potentially in the wrong band. Challenging is difficult. Do you think the current council tax bands and system are fair?
But we are not going to be reforming or changing that. We've been really straight with people in our manifesto.
But the question is whether they're fair or not. I didn't ask you whether you're reforming it. I asked you whether they're fair.
There are many things that are unfair in life, Martin, as you know. I mean, I see right across my constituency the state of housing across the country, which is why we need to build more homes. People left waiting months and months on waiting lists in pain, suffering.
So am I understanding correctly? It is unfair, but you won't be doing anything about it?
No, we're not going to be changing that. And let me set out why. I understand, I see it every single day, how many things we need to put right in this country. But we've got to be honest with people about what our priorities are. And our priorities are not to be raising income tax, VAT or national insurance, because that we think is the wrong approach. Our priority is to grow the economy. And that will take rightly a huge amount of time and political focus. Because what is all this about? We are in a doom loop in this country of higher taxes on working people and at best, stagnant growth. That is wrong, because it doesn't enable people to have money in their pockets, and it doesn't create the money we need to put into public services. There are across the board, from child poverty to the NHS...
There is one more question I'd like to get to you, and I don't have much time.
Martin.
And because I was asked this question yesterday by somebody who was worried during my phone-in on this morning, also of this parish. I can't answer it because I'm not you. You're Shadow Work and Pensions Secretary. I was asked by somebody who... a 62-year-old lady who was panicking because she was hearing you were going to get rid of the 25% tax-free allowance on pensions. Can you tell her now that you are not planning to do that at all in the life of the next Parliament? She will be able to take 25%. It's not an agendaed question. She was worried. Can you put her mind at rest?
I understand. We have set out all of our plans in the manifesto. There is nothing in our manifesto that requires us to make any other changes.
Forgive me, that's disingenuous.
It is not.
It is not because you have said the manifesto.
It's an honest answer.
You have said the manifesto are the things that we will definitely do, but I've heard from many Labour ministers there are other things that we would like to do that are not in the manifesto. What I'm asking you is, can you rule out that you will get rid of the 25% tax-free allowance in the next Parliament?
I'm being completely straight and honest. There's nothing in our manifesto that requires us to make any other changes. And the reason we're so clear about that...
You won't be doing that change.
The reason
it's not clear. I just wanted a yes or no. Will you be getting rid of the 25% tax-free allowance during the next Parliament?
We have absolutely no plans for any other changes on taxes than is in our manifesto.
Not a tax, it's
and
pensions.
the reason that we're doing that is I think people are fed up with politicians who make promises that they can't keep, politicians who claim they're going to do things without showing how it's funded. That is what has got this country into the mess that we've seen. You know, Liz Truss's mini-budget crashed the economy, and it was working people who paid the price.
Liz Truss's mini-budget, we're talking about what this particular viewer had asked Martin directly, and he's asking you, is this going to happen or not?
And and my straight answer is there's nothing in our manifesto, which is our programme for government, that requires us to make any other changes. And it is important to say that I do not believe...
Minister, if you give me the way a straight answer would be no, we're not going to... Sorry, Shadow Minister, Shadow Secretary of State. A straight answer would be, no, we're not going to do it, not saying it's not in our manifesto, because manifesto isn't all-encompassing. But I appreciate you've done your best for us and we have run out of time. We appreciate you being with us on the show this morning. Thank you for your time, Liz Kendall.
OK. It's interesting, isn't it, when politicians say we have no plans to do that, because that sounds like they're not going to do it. The question that it lingers is, you might not have any plans to do that right now, but if things don't turn out as you planned, would you have a plan to do it?
It's actually more than that. I had a conversation with a senior member of the Labour Party, a private conversation, as I do with both parties. And the exact phrase they used with me is, when I asked about a particular policy, they said, we're not putting it in our manifesto because I can't commit we'll do it, but it is my aim we will do it over the next Parliament. Now, what you heard there is it's not in our manifesto, but that doesn't mean it isn't planned to be done.
Right.
And there was no ruling out or ruling in. I mean, I'm no wiser of whether it will or won't happen.
Yeah.
I think it would be quite a big shift. I would have just thought she would have ruled it out of hand, but maybe they've been told they can't do that on the spin line.